We're back. MITech TV. I was off last week because I was in Seattle visiting my grandson, and I was on grandpa babysitting duty, and he's a 3-year-old, so would have been kind of tough to run the show. But anyway, so we're back. We got a great show today. We bring in our two cybersecurity experts. One of the things I said to them when I invited them, although we'll be talking about many things, but one of them is, we're moving into the holiday online shopping time. And there's a lot of bad guys out there that want to fool you into sending your credit card to them so they can clean out your bank account. So I thought I'd bring in these two guys to provide some tips, and then we can go over, since we're going to do a half an hour segment, we can go over some of the other hot cybersecurity topics that we have going on right now. So we have Dan Lohrmann, former CISO for the state of Michigan, and a whole bunch of other things that he's done over the years. And Richard Stiennon, who is the founder of IT-Harvest. And as a disclaimer, Richard and I, a long time ago, write a cybersecurity novella together. I claim to be no expert in cybersecurity, but I have a pretty good familiarity with it. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks, Mike. It's great to be here. Hey, Dan.
Absolutely. Great to be here, guys.
So who wants to kick it off? Let's talk about e-commerce. We're in that time of, and the other issue is the supply chain. I'm reading all these stories about you better order your Christmas stuff now, or you may not get it by Christmas. So, but that's really a separate topic. So let's talk about just the security of what would you recommend folks do if they're going to do their Christmas shopping or Hanukkah shopping or whatever the case may be?
Well, I guess I'll start since I got to speak first. First of all, when you asked me this, first of all, I'm thinking, a great gift that you should both buy yourself and all your loved ones is a portable remote hard drive. And everybody should be backing up their computers. And especially, if you're listening to this, you have to back up your computer today, because it's always immediately after you think I should back up my computer that you actually have an issue. And it could be just, anything could happen to your computer at any time, but you could also succumb to ransomware or something else that you lose all your data. And you don't want to lose all your photos, all the documents, the novel that you've been working on for 5 years. You don't want to lose that stuff. So back it up. That's my first advice. But the second one is, e-commerce security isn't the bugaboo that it used to be, right? Because the banks long time ago figured out, hey, credit cards are totally insecure. This is going to happen all the time, and we don't want people to not use credit cards. So they just said, you know what? We'll take care of it. It's always the bank's problem. And frankly, in 40 years of adult life having a credit card and using it, maybe not 40, but anyways, close to that. I've only had my credit card numbers stolen once, and that was in, from a Taco Bell or something in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And you don't want to know how long ago it was, but it was a long time ago. And then, I got charges for a strip bar in Detroit on my credit card. It was kind of embarrassing. That's the only time I've ever had my credit card stolen. It's not easy to steal a credit card and use it because the banks have such great anti-fraud nowadays. And I think there's 107 vendors that I track that do anti-fraud. So that's not the big concern. But I'll turn it over to Dan because I talk too much.
No, it's all good. I totally agree with those. I'll run through a quick list, and I do agree with you, Richard, especially on the credit cards. One of my tips, I was probably number 5, but I'll jump off with that, is use credit cards, not debit cards, because although some debit cards do have debit cards do have some protections, it's not as many. It's and the money comes straight out of your bank account. And I've seen issues with that. Yes, there are protections that banks try and use around debit cards to kind of give you some anti-fraud stuff. But I'd encourage you to not only get the points with the credit cards, pay them off every month, of course, but there's more protections with your credit cards. You can look at those statements. You can read through. So that's one with that I would mention. But going through a quick laundry list, I would just say number 1 is passwords and websites is a big issue still still out there. People have their credentials in accounts, and they often use the same passwords. They reuse passwords. Some of this stuff you probably heard before, but don't reuse passwords. Use two-factor authentication if at all possible, especially we do a lot of our shopping, especially if it's going to be mailed anywhere. We use Amazon. I know people use Walmart. People use other different, Target or others. It's free. Two-factor authentication. I won't walk through all the details of that, but it's not that hard. They send you a text message to verify that the account is really in fact yours. I highly recommend, two-factor authentication. And yes, we can do a whole segment on ways you can get around two-factor authentication and other techniques that people are using. But, it's 95% more secure than just your username and password, because they get your username and password, it gets on a dark website. They use that. A lot of times they'll try it at other sites, and sure enough, Dog99 works at other places too, right? So people use these simple little email, and that's not one of my passwords, by the way, guys.
I was writing that down, by the way. So go ahead.
I mean, it's like throwing an exclamation point at the end, and you're good.
Cat 98 exclamation! You fooled us.
Exactly. So passwords is a huge area. That was one big one, I would say. Two-factor if at all possible. Change them, don't reuse them. A big one is scams and phishing links. And there's so many things. And the first tip I would just give people: go to reputable sites that you trust. If you see an ad, if you see a deal, it seems too good to be true, but hey, I don't want to miss out, because we all love a deal, right? You want to make sure that you go to the website itself, and don't just use that link. Go figure it out yourself. Or if worst case, you can. Sometimes I've done this where I'll just Google the deal and then pop up and verify that this is not coming from some third party scammer from Eastern Europe. Which they're really good at this. They'll give you the real deal, but they'll add their little malware to the top of it, and they're gonna deliver you the malware and then deliver you to the website. And you think everything's great, but meanwhile you just got either a drive-by, or you've just got some type of malware loaded onto your system, or backdoor where they're going to be stealing your data or capturing your data. So go to reputable websites. And I'll just give one more, and I'll hand it back over to Richard. I got a laundry list of others, but one thing last year that I think was really true, which I think is equally true here in 2021, is cyber, we call it, Cyber Monday or Black Friday. What is it? Black Friday deals, Cyber Monday deals. And it really almost became, I did a blog a year ago called COVID-19 has turned Black Friday into Cyber November. And what I meant by that was more and more deals are coming out earlier. I mean, I just saw some deals in the last week that they say we'll beat any Black Friday deal, and if we don't, we'll match the price. And so if there's ever a better deal, you can get them now. Plus, with the supply chain thing that Mike Brennan was just mentioning, you probably want to get your Christmas gifts a little early this year anyway, because, you may have trouble getting some of those in December. So I would highly encourage you, shop early. And really the deals, are out there now. You don't necessarily have to wait. And reason why is this a security issue? I mean, A, we all want deals, but B, when you feel the rush, it's like, the 5-minute thing, you got to do something. When you feel the pressure and the rush and you got to click now, this is going away in 10 minutes, people tend to do things that get them in trouble. And so if you can relax, get a deal in early November, late October, and think about what you're doing, think about where you're going, think about how you're getting there, you're going to be more secure.
Yeah, awesome. Speaking, not to interrupt there, but getting back to the point of the supply chain, I saw a picture of the port of Los Angeles way from above, satellite image. God, there had to be 100 cargo ships waiting to get in there. And those are mostly, I would imagine, from China or Southeast Asia, where a lot of this stuff is made. So getting back to shop early, but of course, shop safely, right, Richard?
Yeah, exactly. When it comes to passwords, I realized, first of all, if you go to a specialty site, right, just somebody's e-commerce shop, they probably don't have the two-factor authentication set up. And everybody always says, oh, use a password manager, and which is a separate software thing, which I've always been a little leery of because they tend to get hacked every single one of them has been hacked, and all of a sudden now you've got to change all your passwords anyways. But I just, I use a modern browser, so the latest version of Mozilla and Firefox. So when you're browsing somewhere and you're going to sign up and it asks for a password, it can say use this automatically generated one, and you just click yes, and you get this really, really long password, and it's going to be unique. And then the browser remembers it for you. So you essentially have your own password manager. It's in the browser, and it's fairly secure. And mind you, the attackers are trying to hack into Firefox all the time, but this is local, right? It's not stored in the cloud somewhere. They have to hack your computer, which is probably pretty unlikely. And they'd have to really want it. And if they did get in, you'd have bigger problems than that. So it's just go ahead, get over the fear of not knowing the password. You'll never know that long password unless you actually write it down or cut and paste it to something else. Just go ahead and do that. The other thing I've been thinking about is you remember when back before the internet, we all had was TV. So you had to watch TV and with commercials, and there'd be ads, especially here in Michigan. I don't know if it's this way the rest of the world, but there'd be an ad for builders that do home construction work. And if you called those people and asked them to quote doing your kitchen, you were guaranteed to get the highest price and the worst service possible, right? Because they're paying for their ads to churn, and all they do is take money from to pay off the ads that they're running. I've decided that that's similar thing to what's happening with Facebook. And I'm sure everybody's had this experience. The ads you get on Facebook are perfect. Somehow they know exactly that you were just thinking about buying a rowing machine, and they show you the perfect rowing machine. It's just what you were thinking of. And they'll show you that before you even knew you were thinking about getting a rowing machine. Don't click on that ad and go buy it. Maybe click on it. I wouldn't even suggest that, but go Google that particular brand. You'll get all sorts of Google ads and Google responses of better stuff to look at. You'll be able to start reading reviews. Go make a logical choice, not a spur of the moment choice, because you will get horrible response out of whoever's posting on Facebook is either a scam, or they're going to be so busy they won't be able to fulfill your order and give you proper customer support.
I have made that mistake on a couple of occasions, and one time I got hosed for about $100, and I paid through PayPal and turned them in, and the guy somehow said, "We delivered that," and I go, "I can tell you it was never delivered," and PayPal wouldn't accept it from me, and then so I lost $100. And the other times when I bought stuff, the pictures of it look great. And then when it arrives, it's crap, so
Yep.
That's a technical term, by the way. Don't buy anything on Facebook. It's a bad situation.
Yeah. I haven't tried the marketplace. Have you guys tried that? Where you're buying from other people?
Yeah, that's more legit. That's usually more local too. I mean, you're going to have Joe Blow show up with the money and look at your product, or vice versa, versus buying from somebody in China. It's or somewhere else, who knows? But I mean, a lot of it's coming out of China. So
we often use Facebook Marketplace. Yeah, my wife loves it. So it's local stuff. So
yeah.
I'll just add a few more quick ones as we're going through this Christmas list. One of the big things, I know this as we're taping this week, is the big Michigan State game. I had to throw this in here because it's now
that's both Richard and I are U of M grads, but go ahead.
I'm a Spartan fan, so we got everything right. We got everything covered here. Definitely a Spartan green and white fan here, but I mean, I had to get that into the conversation. But I mean, I think the example why I throw that out there just now is, besides it's we're going to be ESPN game day and Fox, big noon Saturday and all the rest. Everyone's going to be looking at Michigan this week. But is those are the kinds of ways that the hackers, the bad actors, get our attention. You think that the headline that either rubs you the right way or rubs you the wrong way, or gets under your skin or whatever. Oh yeah, well, I'm gonna click. I'm gonna go after that. I'm gonna do whatever I have to do. Respond. And again, nothing wrong with that instinct, but I just say we used to say when you think, stop, think, connect, or stop, think, click. And that was a big theme 10 years ago with October Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Here we're at the end of October, and stop and think about, is this, is this a reputable site? Is this a reputable, who is selling this? Is this the right source? So much fake news out there, and so many. A big part of it is getting you to go somewhere where you really don't want to be, and that's a big challenge. And that plays out in so many other ways. I'm not going to go through probably 7 different ways that plays out, but just think about that. Just 2 other quick ones. Public Wi-Fi versus your own phone, or if you're shopping, if you're out. If there's a tendency that people I see shop with public Wi-Fi, don't do it. Use your own phone as a hotspot, or better yet, your home network, that kind of thing. Back to you, Richard.
Yeah, it's funny because in the beginning, public Wi-Fi seemed like this great equalizer, right? We could all be connected all the time, and then it turned into one. We had the access point issues with hackers, but also marketers are trying to push stuff to your phone and all that. And in other places in the world, Israel in particular, where public Wi-Fi is just, everybody uses it all the time. The taxi cabs have Wi-Fi in them. And so, the alternative then is to use a VPN over that, but also you probably want to have, better security solutions on your mobile device. It gets to be a hassle, but but it may be cheaper than actually paying for data charges on your phone.
I think you can even get hacked on an airplane if you use airplane Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah, they try. I mean, every time somebody discovers a way to do that, they try and shut it down. It's there's only a couple ISPs that provide that service. They try and do a good job of that, and they've got so many. The goal with airplane Wi-Fi is how can you hack it so you can actually watch videos or have a conference call with somebody, and there are plenty of ways to do that too.
Ooh, it sounds like another show there, So
Exactly. I mean, I mentioned earlier a tip around credit cards versus debit cards, and I just would say one of the basic tips. Again, this is something that probably you've heard before, but it's a tendency for all of us not to do it. Look at those bills every month. Read, did you really make those charges? One of the big ones that's out now that's a scam that you see is recurring charges or double charges, or it's funny, even some of the credit card companies are coming back and saying, hey, your recurring charge went up $10, and they kind of warn you on that. Richard, one quick story I've had, I think 3 times where my credit card was, and twice I caught it. Once it was caught by the company and they notified me, but a few years back I had somebody I don't know how they got my credit card, but it was a round trip first class flight from Paris to Beijing, China.
Oh my God.
3 people, and it was like $20,000. Like,
wow.
No, that wasn't me. So I don't know where they got that, and it was but it was definitely not me who did that. So somehow there are people, but one of I mentioned that only because one of the tricks that bad actors will use is they'll sometimes get they know something like that's going to stick out. So they'll do smaller charges. It can be $9.98, or it can be whatever, or $28 or $37. But if it's recurring, it adds up. Mm-hmm. But then all of a sudden something changes, and then they add numbers to it, and they add numbers. So basically, just say all of us, hopefully monthly, hopefully regularly, but at least every so often, really take a thorough look at all those charges. Look at your recurring charges. Make sure that what's going through, they're getting really good to try and stay under the radar, what they can do to not be noticed, because they know that if they can get, if they get caught on the $10,000 round trip first class flight from Beijing to Paris, that's going to get caught, and that's going to mess up their system. But if they can get 50 people to all do $25, they can make money that way too. So you need to be really paying attention.
Yeah, and don't forget, if you live in a little village in Eastern Europe, $25 is a weekly income for somebody there, so it's good money. So they don't have to get very much. One thing I wanted to ask you, Dan, was you probably more experience with this than me. I don't know, but periodically I'll want to join the 21st century and send money from my phone and stuff with Venmo or the dozen different ways to do it. And as you're signing up, and I noticed this with Robinhood, right, which allows you to buy even a fraction of a stock share. And it says, okay, give us your bank account and the username and password. We're going to log in as you in order to transact stuff. And that just seems terrifying, and I just won't do it, right? So I can't use Robinhood. I don't think I can use Venmo because I've got an old-fashioned bank. But why is that the case? And do they need to do that? And should people allow that to happen?
Well, Experian too. Experian does that as well. If you want to get their Boost service, you have to give up your banking credentials, and that kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies too, right?
Especially Experian, they've been hacked majorly.
How many times, right? Yeah. So.
Correct. And I mean, so I don't do Venmo. My wife does. Full disclosure, won't go into too much more details than that. But I'll just say, we talked through this quite a bit. I mean, I think I totally agree, Richard. I would balk at giving anybody my username and password to log into my banking accounts, and I don't really see why those companies, any company out there listening to this, fix it. That shouldn't be happening. There really is no need for you to do that. Now, are there ways that you give your routing number and your banking number, and then they verify? And we've all probably been through that, where you try and set it up with even a different institution where even they want to pay you, because people want to, now you have your own small business. They don't want to write a check anymore, right? They want to do ACH. And so then they verify with my, two little, 37 cents and 49 cents, and they verify that it's you, and they set this up and they build a trust relationship. And maybe that is old fashioned now too, but those kind of ways of verifying it's you, verifying this relationship is legit, and then setting that up between the banks or the, Venmo, and that's one thing, but giving them your password and it seems like it's a lose-lose proposition of account information, because what happens when you change your password? Now you're having to go around to all those institutions and change it 6 times all over the place. I mean, it doesn't make sense. And I would highly advise you not to do that. And in many cases, I know there are alternatives that you can use that don't require you to do that.
Okay, cool. So we should talk about supply chain issues because those, they have the issue that Mike was referring to, right? Is all the products that you want to buy for somebody for Christmas are not going to be available. It's going to be really difficult. I know if you're on, I think I was looking for shoes to wear in the shed here, and they were quoting, January already for delivery times. Yeah. And that's gonna get people to start buying really fast, just worried about that not being able to get what you need. Hey, maybe we'll have to shop local, go to the mall once again, or go downtown and buy stuff.
And we talking about redoing our bathroom, and the guy who we know from our church who does redecorating says that the cabinets are 10 to 12 weeks out if you order them. So you can't. Everything is 3 months. He said if you want me to do it in the spring, you better order now. So I mean, the supply chain is definitely a huge issue, and it remains to be seen. I don't want to cause, you and I cause panic here on Mike's show, but I mean, it's people are saying, how bad will inflation get? How bad will this supply chain thing get for Christmas? I think there are different opinions out there. I watch Squawk Box every morning as I'm jogging on the treadmill, but they're kind of all over the map on how bad, but it looks like it's going to get worse before it gets better.
I feel vindicated because when I first got out of school at the great school of University of Michigan,
Got to throw that out, by the way, for you. Go ahead.
The hot thing in the automotive industry, the hot thing in automotive industry was just-in-time inventory system, and so the accountants had taken over, and they had magically assigned a cost to having something sitting in your warehouse, and the length of time it sat there was more expensive. And so we came up with, no more warehouses. and I eventually worked at John's Controls. And so we built a seating plant down the street from the Saturn plant. And in the morning, they'd send us an order for 26 car sets of different models of seats. We'd manufacture them and ship them, and they'd arrive hopefully within the minute that they were needed, and they'd put them in that seat. They're great until a truck gets a flat tire. And then that car is, an hour late getting off the end of the line. And we've seen this over and over, right? With electronics components. And right now we're still suffering that in automotive from the shipment of chips, right? Silicon is not available. And that's delaying. And there's been some automotive shutdowns of plants. You can't buy certain models because they don't have enough computers for them. And it just seems, that was a little too fragile of a system to design, right? It was built, and maybe because it was the end of the Cold War and globalization and the 80s and 90s, it seemed like everybody was going to just play together and we're all going to try and make money. But in actuality, it's not the way the world's going to be for a while.
Exactly. Well, it's hard to know how much, just did a blog on the whole, staff shortages. It's certainly in the cyber industry. We've done whole sessions on that, but really in almost anywhere you go, from your local Burger King to, truck drivers right across the board, now they're saying, as Mike mentioned earlier, at the ports, how much of that is related to just the challenges of staffing and hearing about people getting fired because they didn't get the COVID shots and all that. We don't want to go there, but the reality is how much is related to different things and people just not wanting to go back or afraid of the pandemic. So it's certainly all of this contributes and remains to be seen how big that becomes.
Yeah, it's a fascinating time as we go through all these changes and trying to adjust to them.
Yep.
Coming down to the last few minutes here, any other hot cybersecurity topics you want to touch on before I let you go here?
I'll just give a couple real quick one. For me, it's some changes coming next week. Richard knows about these, but just two quick ones I'd like to share with the audience. I'm actually coming out with a book, shipping on November 1st, November 16th. It'll be available in bookstores, but it's called Cyber Mayday and the Day After, A Leader's Guide to Preparing, Managing, and Recovering from Inevitable Business Disruption. So Cyber Mayday, you just Google that, but co-author is Shemaine Tan in Sydney, Australia. It's really talking about all the different things going on around, from ransomware to Colonial Pipeline to all the different attacks and how can small businesses, how can medium-sized, large businesses, governments prepare beforehand, respond during, and then afterwards recover from, and real true stories. So checklists, tips, but also true stories. Maybe come back, Mike, and we can talk about that in a future show. But real excited about that with Wiley. It's being published, coming out here in November. And then also I'm going to be moving from Security Mentor over to Presidio next week. So in 1 week, I'll be starting with Presidio as a chief security officer in the public sector client base. So I'm real excited about that move as well.
Cool. That's great news. Congratulations, Dan.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I was asking, he notified me last week about this change. And so today, before we came on air, I was just asking, I was not familiar with Presidio. So why don't you give the quick 30-second as to who they are, Dan?
It's just, they're certainly a global integrator, mostly in the US, but they work with all the big cybersecurity companies, the Palo Altos and the CrowdStrikes and Cisco and others, and they resell and provide MSP, managed service provider roles, and staff augmentation. So really an integrator that works with companies all around the world, and certainly governments in the United States will be my focus.
All right. And how can folks reach you at your new employer starting next week?
I'll just say for now, just stick with me at Twitter, basically at GovCSO. That's going to stay the same. But yeah, I will be at D Lohrmann at Presidio.com, 2 N's, DLOHRMANN at Presidio.com next week. But for now, still Security Mentor, and reach me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with you.
All right. And Richard, why don't you give out your bona fides there and how people can reach you?
Well, yeah, you can also follow me on Twitter at CyberWar. Reach out on LinkedIn, if there's any reason you want to be connected, or you can always reach me. I've got a contact form at IT-Harvest.com.